Yes, so we are back. Welcome for part 3. Yes, time for more rice. I hope you like rice. You must. You have seen the two videos already. I think now is time for is good for a quick recap. So we know Japanese, they are descend from Korean, possibly Manchu peoples from Mongolia-Chinese border. Clearly, they are different from standard Chinese in mentality and intelligence. We know Japan import laws, customs, and Buddhism religion from relatively advanced China during first millennium AD, which help explain regimented, efficient organization of Japanese people. After 1000 AD, Japan grow out of Chinese shadow. They want their own cuisine, become distinctly Japanese. Failed Mongolian invasion in 1274 show us how efficient the Japanese had become at the art of war. This turned towards early imperialism, I think, once Japan fight back Mongol pirates and begin to turn hungrily towards the rest of Asia looking for booties. With collapse of Yuan dynasty came the much weaker Ming dynasty, unable to fight the rising tide of samurai on boats. Waco Japanese pirates. By 1400, Japanese role as predator of East Asia became apparent, like a crocodile eyeing a big, fat, sitting Peking duck. Centuries of infighting, rigors of austere and resource-poor Japan islands, the repulsion of feared Mongol army, and Japanese appetite for commerce and lands had made a Japanese vicious, organized fighting force. But one thing I not delved into yet, I should have mentioned earlier maybe, but Bushido, this warrior code. Bushido officially not emerged until 1500s or so, but more likely a Japanese start cooking Bushido much earlier, more like a Muromachi period, 1300s. Starting with a base of Chinese Confucianism, you know, this very standard, yes. They throw in, you see, a handful of Shinto, a handful of Zen Buddhism, throwaway boring stuff like Code of Ethics, and now look at this bad boy. Yes, look at this bad boy. Best warrior religion. Now, you think Buddhism, you think peaceful monk, right? Maybe little self-defense, Shaolin monk, good with staff, right? Original Buddhism, 500 BC or so, yes, did not allow for the violences. I think even in China, I think Tibet as well, they are still very anti-violence, very strict on this. Vinaya Pitaka, kind of disciplinary code meant to keep a Buddhist monk from desiring women, alcohol, or having marriage and family, but was never adopted in Japan, you see. Yeah, peace. No, Japan never want peace, only war and cherry blossom. So Japanese Buddhism never had unified code of ethics, and instead Zen Buddhism become a warrior religion, good for waging jihad. Bushido described as code of moral principle of Japanese samurai, but remember, rules in many soldier were samurai, so this basically default morality code of Japanese government. So yes, back to history. Although Emperor of Japan was official ruler, he was nominal ruler in ceremonial and religious sense, and power delegated to shogun. The Ashikaga shogun had gradually lost control over the regional daimyo, who were outside the capital and hard to reach. Improved farming technology and output had increased economic growth from trade with Ming China, and use of currency increased desire for autonomy and further emboldened daimyo. Some 60 years of impotent central government, shogun and emperor, had left a big power vacuum. Many daimyo, they were very eager to fill this vacuum. These new feudal daimyo were different to shugo or constable daimyo of earlier medieval times. The shugo had many checks and balances to prevent them from becoming warlords by virtue of Chinese Tang-inspired central government. But now this was gone. With the central governments gone, new daimyo were far more powerful in their domains than earlier shugo. But it was not just endless, wasteful civil war that resulted. No, it was stimulating, bracing. Also at this time, big climatic change happened. Maybe you hear about this one. Little Ice Age from 1400 to 1800. Climate in the northern hemisphere become colder and drier by several degrees. No one know why this happened exactly. Crop failure and famines increase cause problems in Europe and North America. Korea had Kyungshin famine. This like Squid Game, but in 1670. And maybe cold snap also helped cause collapse of Ming Dynasty and conquest by Manchu in the 1600s. No doubt this make Japan even more hungry for nice Asian treats. I will quote from Samson book again. In preceding chapters it has been shown that although the 2 centuries ended 1540 were marked by almost continuous civil war, national effort of economy was not devoted entirely to supporting competing armies in the field. On the contrary, needs of contending armies stimulated, rather than hindered, economic progress in almost every field: agriculture, industry, and trade. Trade was stimulated and new cities, towns, and villages sprang up to meet new needs, and some were powerful enough to win their independence from the regional daimyo. So the Sengoku period, it starts with the Onin War of 1467. This was the breakdown of the Ashikaga shogunate, so to speak. Basically, a succession dispute over who take power after Ashikaga shogun Yoshimasa dies. By the way, he had not actually died yet. This is what makes this dispute kind of funny, in my opinion, and shows just how derelict the government, the shogun, was in keeping order. To read from Samson again, the Onin War was most dreadful conflict in sanguinary history of Middle Ages. Its origins are complex, and it is idle to attempt to trace them to specific events. The war arose immediately from quarrel between angry warlords, Hosokawa clan and Yamana clan, but this was only spark that set fire to tinder box. For its true causes, we must look to the general condition and temper of the Muromachi age. Following the collapse of Kamakura shogun in 1333, this was the one Ashikaga replaced, a great vitality and expansive spirit of change was unleashed. The bonds of tradition were loosened, new energies released, new classes formed, and new wealth created. A fierce competition for power and possession to replace acceptance of feudal discipline. Peasants revolted. This English is difficult sometimes. Trade guilds defied the law, you see, and tenants oust landlord. Small shopkeepers, they make fortunes, and they become very powerful. Provincial warriors seize power from shogun deputies. Violent succession quarrels break out in warrior families, and authority of Ashikaga Bakufu declines. But the Ashikaga Yoshimasa had not actually died. This was just argument over who would succeed after he died. His brother, living a neat life in a monastery, is convinced to come back into court and to replace him. But then, out of nowhere, maybe after very hard sex wars, wife of shogun conceive a son. This caused big problem. Who will succeed, the son or the brother? 2 factions to emerge, brother of old shogun and wife of old shogun. Brother of old shogun Yoshimi was supported by Hosokawa clan and wife supported by Yamana clan. So the Hosokawa and Yamana, they juke it out in Kyoto, basically have big party raise entire city to ground, destroy the whole thing more or less, and because evenly matched no one wins, both sides were exhausted and Kyoto became a lawless place for looting by mobs and gangs. While Onin War was going on, Ashikaga Yoshimasa, reigning shogun who caused all this problem, was sitting in castle, gooning and making poetry. This was taken as signal by wider Japan for open season on leadership. Everyone started fighting. Peasants, samurai, daimyo, iko-iki, they all reach for power. But maybe it is a little harsh to condemn him like this. He made attempt to rule in his younger years, and this went south from bad advisors. Yeah, well, these advisors, they were women, because he liked the feminine court. He liked that female attention, but I don't think the advice was very good. But also the complexity and flux of this time as described by Sansom. This was a time of great change. He was unable to suppress the Yamana clan, even with Hosokawa behind him. Sansom chalked up Onin War as bad time to be shogun, more or less, describing Yoshimasa as clever man, who would have been good shogun during a peaceful era of renaissance and arts, like Edo period, but not the man to pull together a violently transforming society like Sengoku Japan. Yoshimasa's extravagance was notorious, and perhaps explained by his despair and dejection from failures in public and private life. His world was falling to ruins around him. He thought of entering a monastery. He studied Zen under numerous masters, hoping to find serenity. But he devoted his mind and spirit to the aesthetic pursuits, attempting to seek freedom from the despondence which had become his habit. So, as time went on, Yoshimasa became the leader of a new aesthetic movement. This new movement of fine taste was not just confined to ruling classes. Newfound wealth of Japanese economy meant that the rich merchants were able to contribute with purchases of rare art, and barons that once fought for provinces now fought for small pieces of porcelain for making tea. It was in creation of movements of taste, aesthetics, that Yoshimasa was the most remarkable of medieval Japanese rulers. Such a movement allowed patronage by the rich of all the arts. One thing is for sure with artists, they are always poor and needing of a hand out. But I think maybe without this Yoshimasa, maybe we would not have anime and manga today. This would be great tragedy. So I think if this is his contribution, it's not so bad. But enough of Yoshimasa. And enough of dry mouth. I must take a drink. So by end of Onin War in 1477, of the 60 original daimyo, only 20 were left, and all were weakened by a decade of fighting between each other. You cannot march on Kyoto to take power if your enemy will walk in and occupy your territory. This kept warlords in check until Oda Nobunaga. Nobunaga was born in 1534. He was son of Oda Nobuhide, the Tiger of Owari, head of the Ogre clan. Nobuhide was quite good military daimyo, taking a few castles, and was respected and feared in Owari, but despite this he could not unify Owari from its warring factions. He died for some reason. We're not sure, I was not able to find it myself, but he nominated Nobunaga as his heir. From Samson again, the more enlightened amongst the daimyo saw the folly of making war merely for expansion of territory, but the spirit of rivalry was not extinguished. And now with Ashikaga Bakufu extinct, there was need for a unifying overlordship to keep them in order. A process of building up central authority must first begin, and its first, possibly most difficult phase, was undertaken by a small territorial chieftain called Oru Nobunaga. So, this Nobunaga, he was gifted castle, Nagoya, by daddy at age 8. This is not bad start, I think if you start Age of Empires, this game Age of Empires, if you start with Castle, that's not so bad. Castle is, you make some good stuff there, It's a nice place living. So he lived there until he took Kyosu Castle at age 21. This would have been good 21 birthday party. Hey, everyone. Hey, girls, yes, come to my I have second castle now at Kyosu. Yes, we will have good 21 birthday party. What they say, is it sweet 21 or sweet? I think sweet 16, but cool 21 party. Yes. So this man was he was given some good stuff. Most of us, we have 21 birthday party. We go out drinking with friends. That's it. Maybe if we're lucky, we get a whiff of some pussy, but. Nobunaga, he had a castle. He go take castle when he was 21. Very good. Nobunaga, you see, was not the only son of his father, though. He had some brothers, which he was compassionate towards. There was older illegitimate brother, who was captured by enemy forces sent to suppress Nobunaga. But Nobunaga, he was not so bad guy, this guy. Nobunaga later traded a hostage he had for his brother, and this hostage was not, some random. Actually, it was the young Tokugawa Ieyasu. This guy will be important later on. But Nobunaga was a known delinquent. He did not have support of his father's retainers, and the rest of the family wanted power for themselves, so he had to take it by force. It is said that at his father's funeral, he threw incense ash at the memorial and cursed his inheritance, probably because he had no support of father's allies. Yeah, I think maybe this is just him being angsty. I mean, complaining you have castle, curse your inheritance. Yeah, I think that little angsty there, my friend. But yes, so when his father died, Nobunaga was 16 years old. This is quite young age to have your father die, and he found his position difficult. He was young and untried, but despite this, somehow he gathered 1,000 men, mainly Ashigaru, or this lower-grade foot soldiers, usually employed by horse-mounted samurai. He used these soldiers to suppress hostile family members. Yes, auntie, uncle, you are not being very friendly towards me. I send army to sort you out. At 23, he deposed the rival branch that held stronghold Kyosu, and then he turned his attention to a younger brother who had support of father retainers, and defeated him at age 26. Gradually, he became master of the entire province. At 26, he visited Kyoto and received favor with Shogun Yoshiteru. At age 27, he was chilling at the Kyosu castle when he heard enemy force of 25,000. Imegara Yoshimoto, also enemy of father, was coming to swing by Owari province to say hello. On the way to capital Kyoto to take power, Nobunaga advisor tell him to weather a siege, but Nobunaga, nutter he was, he say no. Only strong offensive policy would make up for superior numbers of enemy. You see, this Yoshimoto, he had been doing okay. He had taken some forts on his way, and he was feeling very happy for himself. He was resting his army in narrow gorge that Nobunaga had frequented as a child. Nobunaga, he knew the lay of the land. They were drinking and celebrating this Yoshimoto. As night fell, a violent rainstorm hit. It's bad weather. Nobunaga produced small decoy army in front of Yoshimoto forces. He gets the stick with the helmet and the straw. And he gets his guys to, move these around in the distance, make it look like army, yes. But then with his main force, he come behind as enemy is scrambling, drunk, in the mud, stumbling for weapons and musket. His forces went straight to the command tent and beheaded Yoshimoto, thus concluding Battle of Okihazama. Now with some notoriety, Nobunaga then turned to making political allegiances. I think this is very important, when you consider these great leaders, whether it is Napoleon or Oda Nobunaga or Genghis Khan as well. They all have lucky break, maybe you call lucky break, but I think there's initiative and there is lucky break, and they get this notoriety, they get this respect, and suddenly they can begin to make army with other guys, other leaders. You do other stuff as well. You take some women, you have sex orders, you make daughters, you sell. You marry daughter to political opponents to make alliance. This easy. This has been going on a long time. So next up, yes, a merchant named Saito Dosan, who had made fortune selling oil of some kind. I assume whale oil. I don't think that these Japanese, they had crude oil just yet. Not to mention Japan does not have many crude oil. So Dosan, he is usurped by his son. He is killed by his son. And then new lord of Mino is putting up opposition to Nobunaga, the son. The victory, if Nobunaga against Dosan, was due to the skill of junior commander, this guy named Hideyoshi. Now Hideyoshi came from a humble background, and he will be important later on. So, after Nobunaga fuck up Mino, Emperor Ogemachi slide into his DMs, say imperial property confiscated by enemies of emperor. With this, Nobunaga create new motto, to rule the empire by force, and have engraved on the seal. Anyway, so he, this DM sent about the imperial property confiscated by enemies of the emperor. This kind of give him a pretext to, start fucking shit up, So you need pretext for this if you want to get other support. So when Nobunaga arrived in capital Kyoto, his reception was icy, even as he brought with him the previously disposed Yoshiaki shogun. people and nobles alike, expecting a robber baron, just like last military leaders. But Nobunaga, clever devil he is, placed soldiers under strict orders to maintain security of citizens. This made very good impression, and the nobles begged Nobunaga to help them regain their goodies, their pouches of gold, and their jewels, and their tea sets that had been stolen by warriors that Nobunaga had driven out upon his arrival. So now Oda had control of Kyoto, but powerful enemies lay nearly on all sides, who would spring to take Kyoto in Oda's absence. And this is definitely a big problem. You're okay where you are for the time being, but you can't stay there. And when you leave, you will have to somehow find a way to keep your fortress defended, or you must only leave when the people around you are fighting amongst each other. So Ieyasu, once hostage traded by Nobunaga for his illegitimate brother, was now a useful ally when they had made a pact upon Nobunaga's 28th birthday. I guess this is an example of the Stockholm syndrome, maybe, or maybe they were just maybe they had something in common with the tea sets. I don't know. But Yoshiaki's appointment to shogun in 1568 by Nobunaga was a measure to increase his legitimacy, to increase Nobunaga's legitimacy. But Yoshiaki was merely a puppet shogun. Nobunaga paid the outward signs of respect, but he owned the army, he owned the realm, and would not take orders from Yoshiaki. And predictably, these relations between Oda and Yoshiaki were strained from the beginning. After being installed with power, Yoshiaki made a theater-type no performance to Oda. Not even halfway through, Oda said, "No, fuck this," and walked out, saying the country was not yet at peace and he had no time for such frivolities. In 1570, Oda wrote an official letter to Yoshiaki basically outlining that Yoshiaki was only to have ceremonial powers. Oda had a feeling for magnificence, and he did not grudge Yoshiaki the splendors of office. He took great interest in the building of a new palace for Yoshiaki, personally involved in the construction and even striding around the construction site in his tiger skin cloak, showing workmen where to put stones or bushes. I think this would be very cool, tiger skin cloak. I think this would be very cool. Where can I get tiger skin cloak? Do they still make a tigress? They still make a tiger skin cloak? I will look on this. I will look Alibaba for this one. See if I can find. Similarly, Oda showed great reverence to the emperor, and he indulged his passion for large construction projects when he built new imperial palace. A great engineer, I see. This is good. All great men are engineers. This is my opinion. But Yoshiaki, well, predictably, he did not obey Oda's edicts to keep clear of politics and continued to use the nominal respect of his position to strike bargains with Buddhist monasteries and mediate between hostile barons. His endeavors did little beyond vexing Oda, but it showed that despite lack of solid power, emperor and shogun still had remarkable influence. Nobunaga was skilled in civil stuff as well. He knew the wealth of nations, basically, and was active in breaking local trade monopoly and declaring free market in leading towns. When he first entered Kyoto in 1568, his first step was to set elaborate currency regulation, banning barter using rice and requiring large purchases to be made using silver or gold. He fixed exchange ratio between copper, silver, and gold. He reduced the tariffs and tolls between the towns and made sure good roads are constructed and the repair of old roads and bridges. You see, economy is actually very easy if you're not retard. You make good, stable currency. You have a good ratio between these different metals, this copper, this silver, and gold. You remove annoying tolls and tariff. You make roads good and safe to travel, and you prevent monopoly killing competition, freedom to buy and sell. Adam Smith wrote a long book about this, but basically it is this simple: everybody win. By 1570, Nobunaga, though he still had a two big problem, he did not fully own the realm. These two big problems were Takeda Shingen and the Iko Iki. These were the warrior monks. So the Iko Iki They are like a militant church, except they are Buddhist. So they are not samurai, but they are soldier monks. They have this kind of aggressive Buddhism. So Iko Iki originally was founded by a peaceful guy named Shinran of the Shin Buddhism. But Shinran, well, you see, he died, and his successors like the power base of the religion and used to fight a war. Covered power, things like this stuff of politics, actually very good fun. So for Iko Iki monk and followers, salvation was by faith, and faith by war. Ranks of Iko Iki made of land-owning nobles, priests, merchants, and peasants who wanted religious dominion outside of rule of daimyo, and to promote their own economic interests. Iko Iki make heavy use of this new technology called the musket, brought by the Portuguese in the 1500s. Instead of decades of learning to fight with katana, a peasant with some money and a few days could become threat to best trained samurai. This why gun is called the Great Equalizer. But I think, a side note here, I do not think these muskets were rifled at the time, so the bullets were actually round lead balls, and the inside of the guns, I think, was unrifled. So that meant that beyond ranges of, say, maybe 20 or 30 meters, they were incredibly inaccurate. It was not like you would look down the sights and you would hit what you shoot at. No, you would shoot the ball and you would hope that you would hit something. And this was why they would have to employ large groups of these musketeers to shoot as they were being charged, because they could not really hit with any sort of accuracy. So the Iko Iki, they were not a peaceful Shaolin monk like in movies. They were aggressive. The power of the Buddhist temples had been growing collectively over the centuries since Fujiwara had displaced them in the 800s. Scores of powerful Buddhist temples popped up, fighting for and obtaining autonomy from lords and government. These monasteries, they were more like barracks than monastery. These Iko Iki boys, they believed in martial prowess, but they also believed in sake and beer and women and good times. These are all very admirable pursuits, by the way, but I don't think you would expect to see these in a monastery. But this was not what Nobunaga was most pissed about. You see, Nobunaga believed that Buddhism and monasteries should be for learning, meditation, worship, cultural stuff, maybe enlightenment if you're lucky, this type of thing. The armies of the Iko Iki meant that the church could meddle in politics. Nobunaga had no problem with religions, you see. He was actually very friendly towards the Portuguese Jesuits, but he had a problem with these guys pretending to be monks that were actually soldiers. So Nobunaga had to deal with the Iko Iki of En-Ryakuji, north of Kyoto first. There were many different sects of Iko Iki, and they were, semi-autonomous. I believe they worked together largely, but they were distributed all around the country. So these En-Ryakuji were providing soldiers and supplies to rival factions, causing trouble for Nobunaga around Kyoto in 1570, and this was a big headache, you could imagine. In 1571, he gathered a large force and struck En-Ryakuji north of Kyoto at the monastery Hayezan. Yes, I think this is how you say it. The monks, maybe they were having fun time with prosties and booze. They were taken by surprise. Nobunaga burned everything. Everything. Pagoda, monastery, kill everything in there, including women and children. With En-Ryakuji gone, Nobunaga still had the Tiger of Kai to deal with, though. This guy was a bit more problem than drunk monks. This Takeda Shingen, he was a big problem in 1573. They engaged in a vitriolic Twitter battle, you see, where Takeda posts 5 reasons why Nobunaga suck and is gay. Nobunaga report with 7 reasons why Takeda is shoplifting fairy. There were no fatality from this Twitter exchange, though, so future hostilities were certain. Takeda was no noob at Counter-Strike. Nobunaga knew he would be difficult to deal with. But then, stroke of luck. Takeda internet connection, it blow up. Takeda died, possibly from war wounds, in 1573. This was terribly convenient for Oda Nobunaga. This was, I think, his last true credible threat. Shogun Yoshiaki, he had been trying to work with Takeda Shingen to overthrow Oda in 1573. Well, he was found out and deposed, and he fled the capital and became a monk neat in the monastery. Always, it is interesting to think in politics, why did Nobunaga not kill these fleeing dignitaries? He did not kill his treasonous, illegitimate brother, nor Yoshiaki for his plots. This is an interesting question. How does one determine to kill or to spare? This big thing. So after this, many battles happen, but I think this is boring. There is one important battle, Battle of Nagashino, where Nobunaga show why musket is the best. Nobunaga fight... Good foods, yes. Nobunaga fight different Takeda. This Takeda Katsuyori of Takeda clan, but he was not as smart as Tiger of Kai. 1575, Nobunaga showed the true power of Tanagashima, Japanese arquebus musket. Takeda had many good cavalry, you see, and charged entrenched Nobunaga position. Now, normally this would have worked. But Takeda did not understand the true value of the musket yet. But Nobunaga did. You see, Nobunaga loved guns. He loved everything about guns. He was first Japanese Second Amendment guy. But Nobunaga, he also had this resistant bulwark to stop the horse charge, you see. And behind this bulwark, the sharpened sticks, I think there was 3,000 muskets. So it did not go very well for Takeda. He lost. With Takeda gone, Nobunaga began to, own Japan, I think. But Nobunaga was still being harassed by the Iko Iki, and they had a lot of resource to help support potential challenges to Nobunaga, so he had to deal with them. There were the Iko of Nagashima in present-day Nagoya. One of Nobunaga's brothers, Nobuoki, had been killed by Iko at Ogi Castle in 1569. Nobunaga's enemies had rallied around these irritating monks, and it had become an area of growing resistance. Nagashima, swampy delta, was hard not to crack. But in July 1574, Nobunaga sent a big force to Nagashima to deal with the problem permanently. He blockaded them with help of Issei Wako pirate ships. Yes, using the Wako pirates. Yes, these guys are good. So by August, the 20,000 inhabitants of Nagashima Fortress were starving. Then he set fire to wooden fortress on all sides, burning all the inhabitants. This one way to permanently deal with the enemy, I guess it will make a name for you. But Nobunaga could not eliminate all the Buddhist monks. This could leave power vacuum, and he wanted the right flavor of Buddhism to do their worship. So he extended hand of friendship to mild-ish Jodo sect, no doubt with a club in the other hand to beat them if they say no. So, one day, 1579, Nobunaga making new castle in Izuchi, this northeast of Kyoto. There is argument break out between Jodo and Hokkei Nichiren monk over religion, almost break into violence time. Nobunaga hear the noise, and intervene, and Hokkei monk demand debate to settle the matter. Nobunaga agree, and he set up the debate. Maybe it was a little bit rigged. The judge was 84-year-old Zen abbot from Nanziji, probably had hearing aid. But anyway, Hokkei, they probably win this argument, strictly speaking they win, but Nobunaga, he did not like them, so he made sure they lose debate. The Jodo sect triumphed, and Nobunaga called in his magistrate to kill all the Hokkei Nichiren boys. But Nobunaga, he was not adverse to all religions. He was very friend towards the Portuguese Jesuit. He liked their gun, he liked their trade, and he curious about their religion. He really liked the gun. He really liked gun, and the Portuguese make possible for get raw material, nitrate, for the gunpowders. So he helped set up their trade port and route, and made good friends with Luis Frois, Portuguese missionary. The Portuguese church had always sought out the most powerful guy in whatever region they go, and they offer best trades to make BFF. So Nobunaga have a lot of friends at this time, and less enemies by the day. They all seem to die, Hideyoshi, very useful when fighting against Dosan, had been up to a few things. In 1581, he returned to discuss invasion of Bichu province, now Okoyama. Takamatsu Castle did not want to make friends with Hideyoshi, but Takamatsu Castle, well, it was built on the marsh, and it was only maybe 1 meter above sea level. It was rainy season when Hideyoshi turned up. So what does Hideyoshi do? Well, he builds dam. And dam did work well. By the time the rain hit, the defenders were swimming around in their new pool, and they decided to sue for peace. Meanwhile, Ieyasu was finished fighting with the remnant of Takeda clan and returned in 1852. He was rewarded with Suruga province. You could say things had been going well for Oda, maybe a little too well. He had good friends Ieyasu with him in Nazuchi, and they talk of invading Western Japan to get more stuff. So he sent Ieyasu off for holiday in Sakai and began to make way back to Kyoto. But treacherous general Akichi Mitsuhide attacked Nobunaga while he chilled in Airbnb called Honnoji Monastery. This completely unexpected. Nobunaga and retinue tried to fight off Akichi soldier, but it was losing battle. He barricaded himself in monastery and burned it to the ground. Ha ha ha, you never get my head, loser. So, thus died Nobunaga. To read Samson. Opinions differ about the character of Nobunaga. The Jesuit monasteries, though inclined to overlook his faults out of gratitude for his favors, wrote of him with qualified praise, dwelling upon his courage and determination and his great military skill, but condemning his pride and his tyranny. His courage and iron will are beyond question, but it may be argued that in the strict sense he had no exceptional military talent. He bungled some of his campaigns and at the time used unnecessarily large numbers against weak adversaries. Indeed, part of the credit for his greatest victories is due to the planning of Ieyasu and Hideyoshi. Nobunaga was fortune's child in the time and place of his activity, for in the progress westward from Okihazama to Kyoto, when he was younger, he met no first-class opponents, and he was favored by the geographical situation of his own province of Owari. But it must be said that he took full advantage of his opportunities, for he had a restless energy of mind as well as body, and he was not bound by tradition. The record of his innovations is impressive. As a youth he learned the use of firearms, and by 1575 he had substantial control of their manufacture in the home provinces. In 1582 he was collecting metal and melting down temple bells for use in his foundries. He also promoted the manufacture of gunpowder and encouraged the importation of saltpeter and of lead for bullets. But I think that is where we shall leave it for today. I would like to touch on Hideyoshi and Ieyasu maybe next video. I think this Hideyoshi, this guy, he's a very good tactician, you know. And also the very important battle of Sekigahara that ushered in the peaceful Edo period. Then there is the isolationist period of Senkoku from reign of Ieyasu, 1600, lasting all through peaceful Edo period into 1800s, where Japan banned all trade except China and Dutch. Yes, they kick out the Portuguese. The reopening of Japan, assisted by Amerikanski Commodore Matthew Perry, with use of modern naval cannons in 1854, and unparalleled industrialization from 1860 into 20th century. These are all very interesting, but I will save them for next time. Okay, bye.